All right, people, what's up? Good Thursday morning, and it's time to go over the watch schedule. So, we're going to do this a little bit earlier. We're going to go ahead and do this Thursday morning because we have a mildly, not extremely, but slightly interesting game happening tonight at 5 p.m. And I want to mention it because it's not like there's a heck of a lot going on Thursday night, right? Like we got one NFL game that may or may not be good. Given the track record of Thursday night football, it's quite often not good, and maybe you're going to want something to do. So, anyway, starting with tonight, let's go. I will tell you that there are not a lot of big, high profile games on major networks this week, but the ones that are there are really good. And I think that there's enough to keep you entertained throughout the day. So, tonight, 5 p.m., ESPN, we have Utah State versus BYU. Not the greatest game, not the most compelling game, but BYU has a couple players that I have earmarked. Defensive end Batty and their kicker Olaroyd. So those two guys, I think there's enough going on there to be worth tuning in if you've got nothing better to do. And that's it for tonight. One game, but it's better than no games. Tomorrow night, we have a game that I'm going to be watching anyway, and a lot of you guys are going to be watching anyway, but I think it's time. I think it's time we promote Washington a little bit because of Michael Penix. Enough people are starting to circle the wagons around a Michael Penix as a potential pro prospect and maybe even a fit for the Seahawks that it's at least worth watching. Now, I'll say this. I'm not all the way there on Penix. He's got injuries and injury history. He's not physically the specimen of other quarterbacks who I consider to be more desirable, guys like the KJ Jeffersons and the Will Levises and the CJ Strouds. But he's coming along, he's leading a very prolific offense, and they have a big game this week against UCLA. So I'm going to say, yeah, if you are a Huskies fan like me, you're going to watch this game anyway, probably, 7:30 ESPN. But if you're not, and you want to see a quarterback who might be like a day 3 sleeper, then maybe tune in. Both these teams, by the way, pretty good so far this year. 8-0 between the two of them. So it's a good game anyway. You should probably tune in just for that. But yeah, I'm going to say on a Friday night that doesn't have a whole heck of a lot going on, if you can find your way to ESPN for a 7:30 game, then there are definitely worse ways to spend your time. So yeah, Michael Penix is now worth 1 point on my scale. Get it. And that gets us to Saturday, September 31st. And again, not a ton of games that caught my eye that are on major networks. Some of the big time teams are on smaller networks this week. So by the way, if you have access to more channels, go ahead. There are plenty of other games out there that are worth watching, but just keeping it to the staples mostly. There are 5 games I want to draw attention to. It starts in the 9 a.m. block with 2 games. And you're going to kind of have to just make your call or do a lot of channel flipping. 9 a.m. on Fox, we have Michigan versus Iowa. Michigan is a team that has a couple players that intrigue me. We have, where did I put Michigan? Oh, yeah, the center, Oluwatimi. And there isn't a lot of traction for the top centers right now. So a guy like Oluwatimi could shoot up to the top of the list quickly if he catches on. So this Oluwatimi guy, while he's just one player, he has the potential to become a big-time leverage guy in this draft if there isn't a ton of top-end center talent and Oluwatimi ends up being worthy of a second-round pick. Because I've been watching our center play so far this year. We need something better. And you've also got Jake Moody, one of the best kickers in college football, one of the guys who intrigues me the most. So you have that. But you also have Kentucky versus Ole Miss, 9 a.m. ESPN. And again, Kentucky for me is basically must-see TV because of Levis and also because of Rogers, the nose tackle, who I really like. Ole Miss doesn't really have anything going for it, but Kentucky alone makes this watchable. However, let me just throw this out here real quick. Iowa does actually have one player that I think bears some paying attention to that might tip the scales a little bit. Maybe you feel like you've been watching enough Kentucky this year. Maybe you feel like you've already got a good feel for Will Levis. So Iowa somebody who I haven't mentioned yet this year because I haven't had a good opportunity to call him out is their linebacker, Campbell. These Iowa-type schools turn out a lot of good linebacker prospects, and Campbell is a guy who's caught my attention. So it's a difficult call, really. Like, you've got Michigan, they've got a couple nice players. Iowa has Campbell, but Kentucky's Kentucky. And by the way, Kentucky's playing a good team this week. Ole Miss is good. So he's going to have something to prove. So tough call, but it's the call you guys got to make. Personally, I'm going to stick to ESPN mostly. I just want to watch Will Levis because I believe that it makes a lot of sense with the direction this team is going right now. I'm a big fan of his. Every week he's unleashing a couple of throws that just blow me away and show me that he's ready for the NFL. But both games are good. Both games have guys that are worth watching. So flick back and forth maybe. After those two games are over, we get to one of the best games so far this season. If you're trying to watch for college prospects, 12:30 p.m. CBS. Alabama versus Arkansas. Alabama speaks for itself. I mean, you've got Bryce Young, you've got the other Young, you've got three defensive ends. You've got Henry To'o, or you guys know who I'm talking about. Henry. We're going with Henry. You got Cohen, the one of my favorite left guard prospects in this draft. What's his name? God, so many Cohens in my life. I keep thinking Tariq Cohen, Leonard Cohen, Cohen, the left guard, and their kicker. It's a smorgasbord of intriguing prospects. I'm not crazy about Bryce Young, but he's good, certainly a quality pro prospect. They've got a ton of stuff going on that Alabama defense like they always do. And yeah, Alabama alone is must-see TV in its own way. But Arkansas, KJ Jefferson coming off a not great game last week against the Texas A&M, looks to bounce back. He's had a really good season so far, though. And Ricky Stromberg, one of my favorite sleeper, maybe day 3 type centers. So you add it all up, and that is borderline game of the year for college prospects if you're a Seahawks fan. So definitely check that one out. I don't have any other games across from it. There are a couple other interesting ones, but most of them are on smaller networks like the Big 12 network, the all God, what are all the weird networks they have these days, like Fox Sports 8, ESPN Plus, ESPN Infinity, whatever. Don't worry about it. Alabama versus Arkansas can't be beat. 4:30 p.m., so 4 hours after Bama versus Arkansas, so it'll definitely be over by then. On ABC, we have NC State versus Clemson, and this is a really good one too. Clemson is Clemson. They've got DJ, their quarterback, who he put himself on the map last week, and if he has another game like that against a decent team, it's going to be time to start talking about DJ as a pro prospect. They have Brian Bresee, one of the best defensive line prospects in this draft. They've got Trenton Simpson, probably at this point for me the best linebacker in this draft, the best off-ball linebacker. And they've also got another defensive lineman who I like, Davis, a lot. And North Carolina, another chance to watch Devin Leary against what is theoretically a really good defense. So that is a really good game that I highly recommend for multiple reasons. And that takes us to the nighttime slot where there's only one game that really has my attention, and it's on Fox Sports 1, which is not a major network. But if you get Fox Sports 1, 8 p.m., Stanford versus Oregon. And Oregon kind of speaks for itself. They've got Sewell, they've got left guard that I like, Bass, and they've got, what's his name, BJ Flo, one of my favorite low-end linebackers. And Stanford has McKee, who, look, we got to see him up close and personal last week. I'm not saying that there aren't problems, but he's got a nice ball. He's got a nice... He was fitting that ball into some tight windows in that game. When he got time to throw, he was a problem. So I'm not crazy about McKee at this point, but I'm not completely counting him out. There is some stuff to like. He's more of a traditional drop-back quarterback, which some people are going to get put off by a little bit. But McKee, he's got some real assets as a quarterback. So combine those two things... And there's quite a bit going on in this Stanford versus Oregon game that is worth watching as a Seahawks fan, I think. Now, I believe on Sunday, Florida does actually play. So if you get that game, you can watch it. But I think it's on ESPN Plus. So I'm not sure if most people even get that game. But and I think they're playing Eastern Washington, so it's not exactly the game of the year here. But just to throw that out there, I'm not including it here because it's on ESPN Plus, and I don't know how many people get that. But if you want to watch Anthony Richardson play, then they're on Sunday, I believe. And I believe that's just going to go ahead and do it. So yeah, I got ultimately 7 games listed here, but quality over quantity. The Alabama versus Arkansas game has nearly 10. I believe literally it has 9 players who I have listed. 10 if you include Will Anderson, who I'm not listing right now just because I just don't know if we're going to be quite bad enough to get him. Close, but I'm not really believing it yet. Maybe at some point. But if you include him, you've got 10 players in that game that I really like. North Carolina State versus Clemson has a quarterback who is edging his way onto the top QB prospect list, and it has all those guys over in Clemson. So there's a lot of quality games here, even if the quantity isn't what it was last week. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Let me know what you guys think. What are you going to be watching? Do you have any alternate recommendations for your watch schedule this week? Let me know. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. And yeah, if Thursday Night Football's bad tonight, consider checking on over to ESPN and seeing what's happening in BYU.